Okay, round three. What do you attribute to the level of respect that fighters show each other, especially after fights? And why do you think some fighters are more arrogant and angry towards their opponents?
I think you see a lot of respect, not all the time, but you see it most of the time amongst fighters after fights. Because at the end of the day, it's a sport and it's a career. It's the same way you see two football players who might have been on the same team and somebody got, sent somewhere else, and at the end of the game, there's hugs and there's talk and there's camaraderie. Just so happens to be that the sport that we decided to take part in is punching someone else in the face. And perfect example is when I fought Josh Haynes, and I think it was actually only my second UFC fight. We had just got done with season 3 of The Ultimate Fighter. And we were very friendly, and we kept up after the fact. And we actually spoke a few weeks before we fought, just to see how we were doing. Like, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? He asked me the same. Didn't ask about training, what was going on. But we knew full well that we were about to get in the cage in a couple weeks, and there was money on the line, there was a career promotion on the line, and it was just going to be business. And we fought each other as if we hated each other, but without all that necessary emotion that's involved. And when the fight was over, gave him a big hug, and later on when he came back with his face all bandaged up because I destroyed his nose, everything was fine again, between us. And he actually made more money having a fight of the night than he would have made had we had a boring fight and respected each other and had friendship too much. And all he did was win, so it worked out pretty well.
See, both fighters know how razor close it is between winning and losing. They know and respect how close they are to getting hurt or to hurting another human being. And you have to respect the person across from you because they put the same thing on the line that you did. I know you said arrogant, but at the pro level, I don't think you see fighters that are arrogant. I think you see fighters that are starting to understand the entertainment aspect. And what you'll see is 3 weeks where guys will just talk about each other and they'll jaw at each other and it'll seem like it's acrimonious. And then as soon as the fight's over, that's all goes away. And there are hugs and there are apologies sometimes, or they have dinner together afterwards, because it is a sport and it is entertainment, and that's a tough line, and guys are starting to understand they need to promote themselves a little more. But as far as the sportsmanship, we all know how dangerous it is, every fighter.
Alright, so next question is kind of about steroids and drug abuse in sport. What are your thoughts on steroids in this sport as compared to other sports such as baseball, where you're not having physical contact with other human beings?
All right, so here's my thing about performance-enhancing drugs in this sport. If you can't get rid of them, if you can't assure me that every single person is clean of everything, then it almost seems like a waste of time to test. Now, I know that's provocative to say it that way, but the more money an athlete has and the more fame he has, the more access he's going to have to science that the lower level guys are not going to have access to. And that's the thing that worries me. It doesn't worry me that a 35-year-old fighter takes growth hormone to be able to train and continue his career. It doesn't bother me that a 30-year-old fighter is taking testosterone replacement therapy to stay and keep his career going. What bothers me is that there are things that we don't even know about right now at the highest levels of the sport that we can't test for, that we don't know about. And in a sport that is as possibly violent as mixed martial arts, that's the advantages that I don't want to have. I don't care if a guy in cycling is on some kind of new drug that no one else knows about. They'll deal with that because other guys are on other things that people don't know about. But if two guys step in the cage, I'd like it to be as even as possible. Now, you can go further and say, well, an athlete that has a better camp has an advantage. An athlete with that can afford better nutrition, better trainers and things like that. But to me, those are all things that we can all level the playing field with that. But when we're talking about designer drugs and things like that, either you take them totally out of the sport or you understand that they're a part of the sport.
Anything from a fighter's perspective that you think over?
I was always of the mind that this was illegal, and you know people are doing it, but my own ethics are just that it's not for me to do. If I do it wrong, there are long-term repercussions, and is a 10-year block of time where I may have some fame and some fortune worth losing 10 years of my life to liver failure or something else. So personally, just on that front, it wasn't something I wanted to do. I have, and I'll be completely honest, I've taken growth hormone. I don't believe I took growth hormone as a competitive fighter though, but I did. No, I didn't. I didn't think so. But I've taken growth hormone as an adult to just feel better and recover better, because I love to be on a mat, and being on a mat means at 38 years old and I'm on a mat with 18, 19, 20-year-olds that I don't need to be better than, because I've checked my ego at the door. It doesn't matter what happens. But I want to be able to be a good training partner and continue to be healthy and do this every day of the week as best as I can. So I've taken things to help in that process. But when I fought, that stuff wasn't legal, and I didn't do it. And I knew there were people that were doing it, but that was a decision I made just personally that I wasn't going to do.
Okay, do you think that top organizations such as the UFC are doing enough to look up for the fighters' health?
All right, so you put us in a rock and a hard place, because we obviously are not going to talk badly about any organization, because we have young fighters that we hope to fight in those organizations at some point. But I don't want that to look like we're hiding anything. The UFC has recently instituted medical insurance for their fighters, which I think is a fantastic start at making sure their fighters are a lot healthier. I think Dana White has been very vocal about some of the injuries that have happened in training camps, and trying to get that to change a little bit from a practical standpoint from him, because losing fights is bad. I think the UFC lost 5 main event fights this year.
Didn't they cancel an event altogether?
So
they've never done. I mean, that was like one of the first times, the only time they've ever done that.
Right. So even just from a practical standpoint, I think that Dana White and the UFC are very cognizant of fighter safety and fighter health. The small organizations, they don't all have the money to do that, and I think that the fighters understand, or they need to understand, the risk. If a fighter doesn't have health insurance, I would encourage them to not necessarily take this up as a career.
Okay, and not to put you in a tough spot, but for fighter pay, do you think fighters should get a little bit more for what they do, or do you think it just comes along with the territory?
I think as far as when speaking about pay, you have to compare that although the UFC is a giant machine, that to become something as internationally famous, still going to take time to compete with the level of the NFL, Major League Baseball, Major League Basketball. And if you think about having to bring yourself up from an amateur to a low-level pro to getting the UFC, you're not going to make a lot of money in the beginning, because how much money are you actually making the company? So the guys that are at the higher levels, the guys that are very well known, those guys do very well for themselves. And in any sport, you're going to have 1 or 2 guys on a team that are making a lot more money than some of the other guys on the team. Now, at the level of the NFL, that money is there's much more money. You're talking about a $1 billion company like the UFC competing against a multi-billion-dollar company like the NFL, where every team is almost worth $1 billion. Not just a company that's worth $1 billion, but an entire organization that's worth billions and billions of dollars, with multi-billion-dollar television deals and things of that nature. I don't necessarily know how much Budweiser and all those companies are giving to the UFC, so I don't know if a fighter deserves more. But let's go take it back to the whole, you have signed on for this. You signed a contract that said you were going to make $7,000 because you wanted to be in the UFC. I don't feel bad for you.
I don't. I think people compare things to other things, and I think that always you run the risk of setting yourself up for fallacious arguments when you do that. You see Floyd Mayweather make $35 million, and then you wonder why John Jones only makes a couple $1,000,000, or you see another boxer make $10 million, and you want to know why. And those comparisons, it's not possible. Those fighters are selling pay-per-views. I guarantee that if John Jones sells more pay-per-views, he will make more money. If John Jones all of a sudden becomes a star of the level that Floyd Mayweather is, then he will make $20 million a fight. And it will bring up the level of pay for everyone underneath them. It's not like the UFC and Dana White just have a room that's full of money that they're not sharing with the fighters. It costs a tremendous amount of money to build a sport, to take it around the world, to make the production value, to do all the things that they have to do. And I don't believe that there's just money going into people's pockets and not the fighters. I would like the fighters to make as much money as possible. I'd like guys to make $100,000 just to show up. I'd like the champs to make millions of dollars. If the sport keeps growing, that will happen.
Okay, kind of moving on. This question's for Rory. I think I might know the answer, but are there any interesting or stories from Tough with other cast members that involve like wrong ethical decisions, and in hindsight, would you change or act differently?
Have there been any issues from Tough? Yes, there was a period of time when I was basically I'm not even going to say what I was going to say because I don't even want to go there with that word.
Why don't you censor yourself?
No, I don't even want to go there with that word. There was a period of time where I definitely felt that I was sort of being mocked or mistreated by some of my teammates or maybe some people on the other team, and not necessarily realizing who it was. There was an incident where I took someone's headgear and rubbed it between my butt cheeks, and then the reaction was for that person to pee on my headgear, and all these things sort of come out when you're watching this on television. So like, I don't know that the headgear that I still use to this day, that's how well it was made, was sprinkled on by Ed Herman.
You still use that headgear?
Yeah, still got it.
That's right.
And I don't think that the person who's, I don't even remember, because I can't remember, but I don't remember whose headgear I rubbed in between my cheeks, that person didn't know that happened until they saw it on television. So was that the right way to handle that situation? I don't know. Probably wasn't. But you live in a house with 15 other people for 6 weeks, and you're very much isolated from the real world, and it makes you a little stir crazy, and you make poor decisions.
All right, so final question is kind of, you guys have played many roles in the sport. How do you think that's changed your growth and understanding of the entire sport, and how do you think it's beneficial?
Well, I would say we've played almost every possible role you could have within the sport. Coaching, fighting, managing. We even help co-promote and match make some events, amateurs, all the way up to world champions.
And gym.
And we've owned gym. I forget about that one. We've owned multiple gyms for a long time. We've taught seminars all over the world. We've fought all over the world. So I just said all that, and I forgot what the question was, but it's a fantastic sport. And we wouldn't have been involved at this level if it wasn't. And what makes it something that we continue to be involved in is the people. And it goes all the way back to your first question about ego. The people involved in MMA are real people. There is a low amount of BS, there's an honor, there's a bushido to it. It's still a martial art, and it's a real martial art. It's something we can test, and it's something that helps anyone that gets involved and grow. You know, if you're a lawyer and you come in on a Monday night and you put gloves on with a guy who just had an amateur fight, and you get through that, then the next day standing in front of a judge or whatnot, it's not that difficult. You know, if you do 10 hard rounds on a jiu-jitsu mat and you leave here and your fingers are blistered up and you got neck burn and you got your joints are achy and stuff, nothing else in your life is that difficult anymore. And I think that's what's really kept us. It's the martial arts, in the mixed martial arts, that's really kept us. If this was just a sport, if it was just come in here, practice, and go home like other sports, I don't know if we would have stayed involved the way we have through these years. But it's the martial art, it's the growth of everyone in here that makes it all worthwhile.
All right, you guys got anything else you want to add or get out there?
This amazing interview is taking place at the Hardcore Gym in Athens, Georgia, which can be found at thehardcoregym.com or by phone at 706-850-8444.
Nice.
I'm just going to cut all that out.
I know that.
Thank you guys
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
doing this.